The woman's hand moved before her mind could catch up with it. She was late. She was always late on Thursdays, because Thursdays meant the board call at 7, and the drive across town and the cocoa she never finished. Harriet Voss walked fast, the way people walk when they have somewhere to be and somewhere they're trying not to think about. The sidewalk outside the Dunn building was wet from the morning rain. She wasn't looking at the ground. She was looking at her phone. Then she stopped. The man was sitting against the wall near the service entrance, the kind of place that exists in every city. The gap between the grand front door and the loading dock, where the city lets its invisible people rest. He had a paper cup between his knees, and his eyes were half closed. His jacket was too thin for October. Everything about him said he had been there a long time and had nowhere else to go. But Harriet wasn't looking at any of that. She was looking at the chain around his neck. It was silver, with a small rectangular pendant. Brushed metal, simple, almost plain. Except for the engraving on the front. She couldn't read it from here. She didn't need to. She knew exactly what it said. For the road ahead. Dad. Her phone dropped 2 inches in her hand before she caught it. She had held that pendant in a hospital room on a Tuesday in March, 3 years ago. She had pressed it into her son's palm and said, "You'll come back to us." And he had smiled the way he always smiled, with the left side of his face more than the right, and said, "I know, Mom." And then he had gone. And then the call had come. And the pendant had never come back. The man's eyes opened. He looked at her the way people look at someone who has been staring too long. Cautious, tired, not angry, just waiting. "Where did you get that?" Harriet said. Her voice came out lower than she expected. Not demanding, almost afraid of the answer. The man looked down at the pendant, then back up at her. "Ma'am, that necklace." She took 1 step closer. The wet sidewalk reflected the streetlight behind her. "Where did you get it?" He wrapped one hand slowly around the pendant, not protective, more like he was checking it was still there. "It's mine," he said. "I know it's yours," she said, which wasn't what she meant. "I mean, how did you come to have it? Did someone give it to you? Did you find it?" He studied her for a long moment. He had a broad face, weathered but not old. Mid-30s, maybe, the kind of face that had seen weather it hadn't expected. His eyes were steady. Whatever he wasn't afraid of her. "Lady," he said carefully, "I've had this since I woke up." "Woke up where?" A pause. The street noise filled the gap, a bus, a horn, someone's music from a second-floor window. "In a field," he said, "outside Harrisburg. About 2 years ago." Harriet Voss was 61 years old and had run a logistics company with 400 employees for the past 19 years. She had buried her husband at 54 and her son at 58. She did not cry at funerals. She cried in parking garages, alone, where no one could see. She was not a woman who made impulsive decisions. She called her assistant and canceled the board call. Then she crouched down on the wet sidewalk in her good coat and said, "I'd like to buy you breakfast, if you'll let me." His name, the name he went by, was just Cale. No last name. Or rather, no last name he could confirm. He knew the word Cale felt like his, the way a song feels familiar even when you can't remember learning it. Everything else was approximate. He was not dangerous. She registered this the way she registered everything, quickly, with the part of her brain that had kept her alive and functional through decades of reading rooms and reading people. He was watchful. He was careful with his words. He held a coffee cup with both hands like it was something to be grateful for. He was not dangerous. They sat in the diner on Lenox Street, in a booth near the window. He ordered eggs and toast and ate without rushing, but without wasting time either, the way a person eats when they've learned not to take a meal for granted. "You said you woke up in a field," she said. "Do you remember anything before that?" He considered the question honestly. She respected that. He didn't perform confusion or milk it for sympathy. He just thought about it the way you think about a word you can't quite retrieve. "Pieces," he said. "A car, rain. A bridge. I think a bridge. I remember the sound of water more than anything else. And then nothing. And then the field. Were you hurt? Doctors in Harrisburg said I had a head injury, some memory loss. They weren't sure how much was permanent. He looked at her steadily. I've been trying to fill it in ever since. Have you? Some things. Not enough. She set down her coffee cup. She looked at the pendant resting against his shirt. My son had a pendant exactly like that one. Same chain, same engraving. I had it made for him before he deployed. He was Army. Second deployment to Germany, then reassigned. He died in a car accident overseas March 3 years ago. She kept her voice level. They told us there were no personal effects recovered. Something shifted in his face. Not recognition, exactly. More like the feeling of a door that wasn't quite latched. They told you that, he said, slowly. That's what the military told us, yes. He was quiet for a while. Outside, the morning traffic moved. A child walked past holding an umbrella shaped like a frog. What was your son's name? He asked. Elliot, she said. Harriet Voss. He looked at the pendant. He turned it over in his fingers. She hadn't seen him do that before. He must have done it 1,000 times without thinking. And there, on the back, in smaller letters she couldn't read from across the table, was something she hadn't told him was there. He read it aloud, quietly. EV. The diner was loud and warm and smelled like bacon grease, and she couldn't breathe. The doctor's name was Anita Kowalczyk, and she owed Harriet a favor from a charity board they'd both sat on for 6 years. She came to the hotel room Harriet had booked, a suite at the Dunmore, impersonal and clean, within the hour. She was efficient and quiet, and she did not ask more questions than she needed to. The man Harriet knew only as Cales sat on the edge of the bed while Anita worked. He submitted to the examination with the patience of someone who had been examined before and knew the drill. Blood pressure, reflexes, pupil response. The scar at the back of his skull, pale and well-healed, 3 inches long. 2 ribs on the left side that had healed slightly wrong, suggesting an old break never properly set. The head injury is consistent with blunt force trauma, Anita told Harriet in the adjoining room, speaking quietly. Something heavy, or a fall at significant velocity. The neurological picture is, it's consistent with what he's describing. Localized amnesia, primarily autobiographical. He knows how the world works. He's lost the personal map. Is it permanent? For some of it? Very possibly. Some may come back with time or with the right triggers. Some of it may never. She paused. I want to be careful with you here, Harriet. You're looking for your son. This man is looking for himself. Those are 2 searches that might overlap, or might not. Don't make one carry the weight of the other. Harriet nodded once. I need a DNA test, she said. I assumed. Anita held up a small sealed kit. Already done. 2 days passed. Harriet went back to her office. She sat through meetings. She answered emails. She came home to her apartment on the 12th floor and stood at the window and watched the city and did not let herself think too far ahead. Her daughter, Steph, called. Harriet said she was fine. She said it was a work thing. She did not tell Steph about the man with the pendant because she had nothing to tell yet. She was not a woman who led with hope, but she went back to see him both evenings. She had arranged for him to stay in a room at the Dunmore, a modest one. He had been clear about that. He would not take something he didn't need. He was at the desk by the window when she arrived the first night, with a notebook open in front of him. What are you writing? She asked. Things I remember, he said, when I remember them. Smells, mostly. Colors, numbers sometimes. He looked at a page covered in single words and short phrases. Lehman verbena, the number 14, blue shutters, the smell of a woodshop. She sat down in the chair across from him. She looked at the page for a long time. My husband built furniture, she said. In the garage, all through the boys' childhoods. He made Elliot a bed frame for his 12th birthday. He worked on it for 3 months. Cale looked at her. Neither of them said anything. I'm not assuming, she said finally. I want you to know that. I'm not trying to press a shape onto you. I know, he said. She stopped. You write down woodshop and I'm sitting here trying not to make it mean something. Maybe let it mean something small, he said. Not the whole thing, just something small for now. She nodded. She looked out the window. Elliot used to do that, she said quietly. Offer people a smaller version of the thing that was too big to hold all at once. She paused. He got it from his father. Anita called on a Thursday morning. Another Thursday, the city wet again, the same light. Harriet, she said, you need to sit down. I'm already sitting. Good. A breath. The sample is a match, not partial. Full mitochondrial match on the maternal line, and the autosomal profile is consistent with a parent-child relationship. She paused. Harriet, he's your son. The room held very still. The accident report, Harriet said. Her voice was someone else's voice, coming from somewhere else. The military said, I know what they said. They said there were no survivors. I know. Anita's voice was steady and careful, which means either the information was wrong or it was made to be wrong. Either way, he came home, Harriet. Just not the way any of you expected. What came next took time. It always does when the truth has been buried under 3 years of paperwork and grief and the bureaucratic machinery of institutions that do not like to be wrong. Harriet hired an attorney, the best one she knew, a sharp-eyed woman named Vicky Strand who had a reputation for opening doors that other lawyers described as walls. She hired a private investigator. She made phone calls she had not made in 3 years, to offices and officers and a colonel in Stuttgart who paused a beat too long before saying he would need to look into it. Piece by piece, the picture came together. The accident had been real. The car had gone off a bridge in the rain, just as as Elliot had remembered. Another soldier had died in the crash. The rescue operation had been underfunded and fast and sloppy. Elliot had been pulled from the water unconscious, with no identification, and had been treated under a wrong name. A clerical error that no one had caught because no one had looked hard enough, because someone back home had an interest in not looking. That someone was Harriet's brother-in-law, Owen. Owen Voss had been the executor of Harriet's late husband's estate. He had moved money, slowly, carefully, in amounts that looked like administrative fees and investment losses, for almost 4 years. When Elliot's accident happened, the death report had reached Owen before it reached Harriet. He had seen a window and he had taken it. A small confirmation, a form not passed up the chain, a family not notified in the correct order. It had taken almost nothing to let the error stand. He had not caused the accident, but he had let a mother bury a living son, and he had spent the money all the same. Vicky Strand was very good at her job. The civil case was airtight. The Military Review Board reopened Elliot's file. Owen, when confronted, went quiet in the way that guilty people go quiet when they realize the room has already decided. He did not fight it. There was nothing left to fight with. Harriet Voss spent the first week after the DNA results in the hotel room, then at his mother's apartment, then very slowly, like someone learning to walk a trail they've been told exists but have never walked. In the life that had been waiting for him. He did not remember everything. He might never remember everything. The doctors were honest about that, and he was at peace with it in the way that people are at peace with things they have had 2 years to quietly accept. He had fragments. He had the smell of a woodshop. He had a number 14 that he now knew was his childhood address. He had lemon verbena, which turned out to be the hand lotion his mother had used since before he was born, and which he had smelled on her the first night she came to see him at the diner and had not known why it made him feel, for just a moment, like somewhere safe. His sister Steph came. She cried for a long time. He let her. He held on and did not let go. There was a Sunday in November, gray light, cold, the kind of day that smells like smoke from somewhere, when Harriet found him in the garage of her building. She had given him access to the storage unit, where she'd kept some of their old furniture after selling the house. He was sitting on the floor next to his father's workbench, which she had never been able to throw away, running his hand slowly along the edge of it the way a person reads Braille. He didn't say anything when she came in. She didn't say anything either. She sat down on a crate a few feet away and waited. After a while he said, "I remember the sawdust." She said he used to whistle when he worked, badly, off-key. Elliot made a sound that was something between a laugh and something that wasn't a laugh at all. "I know," he said. "I remember that too." The cold settled around them, the particular cold of a concrete garage in November, and for a little while neither of them moved because neither of them needed to go anywhere. The workbench was there. The sawdust smell was still in the wood. The pendant was still around his neck. Some things get lost and don't come back. That is true, and it is hard, and it is a thing you carry. But some things, a chain, a name, a smell that finds you before your memory does, those things are stubborn. They hold on. They wait in the dark until someone comes looking. And sometimes, on a wet Thursday morning on a sidewalk you've walked 100 times, the thing you lost looks up at you and asks what took you so long.